Good Up is our space to talk about those experiences in life we didn't know we all had in common. We're the after work happy hour conversation with your best friend.
You good up bad, like, hello.
The place where you bring up the hard parts of life, the ones that made you laugh, and the things that made you who you are. Because who said becoming good up wasn't a little bit uncomfortable? Stay tuned for more information about this week's episode. Hey girl.
Hello.
Morning to everybody who's listening. Welcome back to another episode of the Good Up podcast. We are here with a legendary guest, okay? And the reason I say legendary is because this woman was our guest on one of our most popular episodes, and she is back on what I think is going to be, again, one of our most popular episodes. Because she has a way with words, okay? She has words, okay? A way with words, a way to explain things, a way of referring to things or explaining things in a way where you'd just feel understood. You'd just be like, yeah.
Yes.
Exactly that.
She just makes everything make sense in like ways that it makes so much sense to you that you couldn't come up with it. It's like, it's lit. It's lit
you'd be like, ain't nobody writing like this. Nobody referring to shit like this. Okay? So I'm going to allow you to introduce yourself.
Bad woman do not cry. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Good Up podcast. My name is Rebecca, otherwise known as Tisbeth. I am a 30-year-old mother, possibly rejuvenated skin. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it plays out. You let me know.
I love that.
Hopefully gonna be a best-selling author here in a couple of years. So look out for that. Otherwise, let's get started.
You love to see it. You love to see it. So Deidre, I'm gonna turn the mic over to you because this was an episode in particular when we were planning that you were very passionate about. So I want you to tell the audience, what are we talking about today?
So I want to paint a picture here because this is something that's come up last season. It's come up before where I've mentioned that there's certain aspects of parenting that people don't speak about, especially as freely as they speak about how much they love parenting. And it's the side of parenting that it's low-key a little bit of a dark side of parenting, right? And I hate to say it like that, but the reality is parenting is not always a cakewalk, and nobody really talks about it. And
I think the connotation of the phrase dark side tells us that, it's a negative. It's it's not what it's supposed to be. And that's not true.
The reason why
this is part of
it. It's just a natural part of it. And that's why I refer to it as the dark side of parenting, because it's a part of parenting that people just tuck away in the closet. I feel like rather taboo. They make it taboo. So it's like, why is it that it's okay to post the funnest parts of parenting, right? Why is it okay to discuss the funnest parts, but nobody's just talking about how normal it is for there to be parts of parenting that people just don't like? Nobody talks about it. And it's like, that's why there's so many people who are parents just because they thought that was the next step in life. Well, I just thought that was the next step. I got married, next is children. And then they have children and then they're like, I fucking hate it here, but they don't say it to other people. And then I just feel like that cycle kind of continues. You know what I mean? So
right. And I feel like when moms, I will say moms, because I don't have a lot of experience with dads speaking up on a public forum about parenting. I've joined a number of groups. Oh, fair enough. All
Go to Reddit.
I will say that for the people who are talking about parenting in a dark side light or in a negative light, or the parents who are talking about parenting authentically and transparently often sandwich it in, I love my kid. This is the greatest experience that I've ever had. Like they always start it with, I love my kid, but, and then when you get to the end, it's always,
but they make it so
I wouldn't change this for the world, or I don't regret having my kids, or formula is $38 for one thing, and your child keep running through it. Not only are they running through it, sometimes they scream for it, you make the bottle, and then they don't drink it. I know you're frustrated. Let's not pretend.
Do you think that the reason why people do that sandwich is because they know they're going to be judged if they just say, honestly, Parenting is ghetto as fuck, and I hate it here. I'll be honest and say there's even a little part of me that might find myself like, if somebody, rather than created the sandwich, if somebody just was like, yo, I fucking hate parenting, why did I ever do this shit? I would be like, well, damn, bitch. Like,
right.
But I also get it, you know, and I feel like that goes, you guys know this always is going to segue into why we're all pro-choice. If you know for a fact that you're not cut out for this shit, you should have the choice to decide that you're not going to do it.
So my question is, as mothers, as people who have now dove into motherhood and experienced it, when was the point that you realized this shit is too fucking much? Was it birth? Was it pregnancy? Was it like when the baby was crying all night and you were like, yo, you just get here, like you need to relax? When was it?
When he was a potato. He could do nothing. He could say nothing. It was so boring, right? And I did not have a lot of moms like to purport this concept that when you see this child, and I actually saw him, like there was a mirror in the delivery room, so I could literally see him coming out of me, right? And people say that when you see that, you don't have a choice but to just fall completely and totally unexpectedly in love with this thing, and you have this bond with this child, and they'll tell you all the time, breastfeeding, go nurture the bond, and so breastfeeding hurts. Okay,
breastfeeding does hurt.
And so
it
that
hurts.
For me, oh my God, it's one of those pains that eventually, if you keep it's almost like sadomasochism. If you keep hurting yourself,
eventually you get used to it and it doesn't hurt anymore. Yeah.
Exactly. But let's not give the idea that it doesn't hurt. And the nurses and the breastfeeding consultants will constantly tell you it shouldn't hurt. And it gives you the impression that if it does hurt, that means you're doing it wrong. So here I am, literal bullshit. This little potato. That part. Here I am sitting with this little potato who can't do or say nothing. And he is trying to latch. I would risk it and say that it hurts more than actually giving birth to him. It was really painful for me to do. And then me hearing the lactation specialists and the nurses in my head saying, if it hurts, then you ain't doing it right. Or that breastfeeding, what they said was, breastfeeding doesn't hurt. So in my head, that translated to, if it hurts, that means that I am not doing it correctly. So I am going through all of this pain and I ain't even doing it right. Man, get from it.
Yeah, keep it. Take it back. For me, where's the formula?
Absolutely. I didn't go to formula. I got breast pumps. I got several breast pumps. And we pumped for the whole first 7 months of his life. Wow. I just pumped. When I experienced breastfeeding, I left the hospital. I came to the house. I tried to do it on my own, and it was hell. Keeping in mind that I wasn't one of those people that just immediately fell in love with this little squirmy thing, right? So I'm already like trying to work on developing a bond with him, and then he is putting me through excruciating pain with this whole breastfeeding thing. Y'all wanted to pack up my bags and go. Listen, my ex, who I live with, nothing going on. He could have kept joy.
No, and I get that, and I think that makes a lot of sense, because for one, you mentally prepared yourself for labor pain. You mentally prepared yourself to go through a certain amount of pain to deliver him. You didn't mentally prepare yourself for your fucking titties to be hurting because of him. So I could see how you're like,
especially because they tell you that it's not gonna hurt.
They tell you it doesn't hurt, and
so you don't mentally prepare for it.
That shit hurts, and this is why I say they're so full of shit, because I stuck out breastfeeding. Dylan refused bottle, so I had no choice but to stick out breastfeeding. Eventually it does stop hurting, but that's the language they need to use. They need to, because like I said, you mentally prepare yourself to experience a certain amount of pain. If they're constantly saying, oh, it doesn't hurt, then you go in expecting for breastfeeding to be this beautiful, magical thing where you and your baby get to bond and skin to skin, and then this shit hurts. Because I remember my reaction to Dylan first latching. I was like, oh my fucking God. Like, I literally screamed. Like,
that's how it's marketed too. Like, even the mommy content, because I follow a lot of influencers who eventually had kids and became mommy influencers, right? And did the whole breast is best, like, content, like breastfeeding is okay and this and this and that, but they always frame it as like this magical, look at me with my baby in the forest and he latching onto my titty, like
and I have all this very milk, and I produce gallons of milk.
And they always come off as like, oh, I am this powerful, just ethereal woman who can breastfeed my child. So for me, if I was to have a child and have complications with breastfeeding, knowing that that's the idea in my head of what breastfeeding should look like, and it should look easy, and it should be this natural bond between me and my child, I gonna feel like I fucking up. On top of the fact that I just push a fucking potato out of my body, so I'm already going through.
Actually, you pushed a watermelon. Let's be clear, you pushed the watermelon out
I said potato,
your
coochie.
Cause you pushed the motherfucking watermelon out of your coochie. Okay.
Let's be clear.
Like the things that you have already gone through physically and mentally to be pregnant and give birth to a child, just draw the line there. That's enough. But then on top of that, here's all these things I now have to do, and according to everybody else, it should come naturally, and it's not coming naturally.
It's
like
not.
That have to
and
be
it takes a toll. It takes a serious toll. So for me, ironically enough, that moment, to answer the question, that moment of what the fuck did I get myself into? Ironically enough, it didn't come until Dylan was a toddler when it came, believe it or not. I had really bad postpartum anxiety. Like, it was like, I was terrified of injuring my baby. Any little movement I made, I was terrified that I would injure him. I was scared to walk through doors because when I would be holding him, every time I would walk through doors, I would be afraid that I might accidentally bump his head into the corner of the door. Maybe the level of anxiety that I experienced would be the thing that made me be like, why did I do this? But I never felt like that with him. The first time I ever found myself like, what the fuck did I get myself into, was when him and I first moved to New Jersey. He was 3. That was my first time truly experiencing being a single mother. Because even though me and his dad had broken up like maybe 6 or 7 months prior to the move, he was still very much there, Moving to New Jersey was the first time it was truly just me and Dylan. So him and I were close, but his daddy was his person. Like when something exciting happened, daddy was who he was going to show. It used to hurt my feelings sometimes, but whatever, right? But this was the first time it was truly just me and him. It was a big change for him. So his attitude changed. He really was trying me a lot. From the moment he came out of my fucking body to that point, he was always so easygoing and well-behaved and easy to work with. So that was the first time, because he just legit was rebelling. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? And then I had to sit.
Because he had a lot of feelings and he didn't know what to do with it.
His attitude definitely got better, but that was the first time I found myself like, what the fuck was I thinking? Like, who the fuck sent me? But the beauty in that was the first time I was able to understand my mother better, because my mom is a hothead. My mom used to yell at us a lot. My mom used to call Sankariana. She used to do the most. And as a child, I just saw her as fucking mean, which she was. But as an adult, I was able to understand why she was so mean. Did it make it right? Absolutely not. And I was able to say, like, it's not right that she yelled at us so much, but I understand why she yelled at us so much, because she was a single mother. Right. Raising twins.
Because she had a lot of feelings and she didn't know what to do with them. She didn't know how to process them. She didn't have the tools. Nobody guided her on how to process her emotions. And she's a single mother raising twins. So I'm like, 1 3-year-old is pissing me off. But granted, to what am?
I speaking from, and throughout this episode for the audience and for you, like, I gonna always be speaking from the perspective of somebody who is like 99.99% sure does not want kids,
not
right?
Having children.
Yeah. But so you gonna hear me a lot of the times, like, I'll ask you questions, and when I answer, I'm gonna be like, see, this is why I've been telling her, I mean, want to fucking chat. But it really is like, this is the conversation I have been wanting to have, and I would like to see women have in a more public space, because there are a lot of us who aren't sure. But when we aren't sure and we don't want kids, we feel the need to have to like argue our side. And there's a lot of people who are like, oh, you're gonna change your mind. I don't know that I have it in me to give my body over to another human being. So going back to the breastfeeding conversation, great, it's a bond between mother and child, but the thing that my brain focuses in on is, so I must give you my titty whenever you want it because you need it? No.
And I want us to revisit that part of it, because that's one of the aspects of motherhood, not even parenting, but motherhood, that I feel like people talk about, but not enough. People only feel comfortable sharing the best aspects of their life. Everybody wants to be living their best life. But when it comes down to breastfeeding is such a mind fuck. Just becoming a mother is such a mind fuck. Your life changes forever, right?
Yeah.
That adjustment period takes way longer than anybody lets on. Dylan was 2 when I finally found myself back to me. Okay. And it was me adding this new version of me to the mix. It was me adding Deidre the mom to Deidre the existing person. I hope that makes sense.
I don't have 2 years. Like where I'm mentally I'm okay, but if I try to put on my shoe and the strap for the heel in the little thing ain't going in the hole, I might jump off a bridge. That's where I am right now. So for me to have a baby,
that. Don't bring a baby to that. Like I didn't expect
it's a lot though. Like it's
and then your nipples get chapped. The girls don't talk about that. Your nipples, when you see it through that first month of breastfeeding, you deal with your nipples getting chapped and bruised. You have to moisturize them with like lanolin, or some kind of like Aquaphor, or just something to keep them moisturized, because all that fucking saliva gonna dry out your nipples. So when that baby is not on your boob, your nipples is gonna get dry like
and
fuck.
Then you have to be having like clogged milk ducts and shit. Like
listen, the pain when you get engorged.
That happened to me.
So I was still in UVI when I had Dylan, right? And he was born right before exams week. So I actually had to make up my exams. I had to make up my exams. And so, yeah, he was born April 18th. Exams is usually like the first week of May. So I had to, leave him. He was like a week or two old or some crazy shit like that. So I had to come, leave him home and go take my exams. And I remember being so fucking engorged during my exams. Like I did the exams, I had to rush home to nurse him. It was hell. When I did go back to work, I'll never forget, my boobs. I remember I was sitting in a meeting with my boss and I could feel I'm like, fuck, it's time to feed this baby. And I'm sitting in this meeting with my boss and I can feel, I had on like the pads, the nursing pads, and I could feel the pads getting so
dripping.
Like, and I'm sitting there so uncomfortable, like, fuck my
Definitely been there.
This episode is going to be saved and archived, and then like I gonna just have it in a little CD, and every time
you get
when you want Steven ready to have kids, I'm gonna be like, go home and listen to this. And
go listen to the podcast.
The expectation that you are supposed to be able to come back to work I was fortunate enough that people donated their leave time to me so that I could stay home for 12 weeks. You're just not prepared to do that, to go back to work.
First of all, we're not designed. Let's be clear. We are not designed to go back to work that soon. That adjustment in of itself, it's a lot.
So a number of influencers online that eventually, went through motherhood or parenthood, and the way that they facilitate other people's concepts of what parenthood is going to be like. They frame it as this beautiful thing. And I think that is the most, I want to say dangerous is a very good word for it. I will say pathetic. Because I feel like they feel pressured to continue this narrative that motherhood is just this wonderful thing. They feel pressured to do that and they succumb to that pressure. I pride myself so much on being authentic on my page about what the fuck I'm going through with this whole tiny human thing. But it's so heartwarming that when I talk about, some of the trials and tribulations of being a mom, there are so many women struggling with the same shit I struggling with, but they would never say it, And I kind of find it like that's what my whole platform is about. From before, when it was all about, being hoism and really exploring yourself as a sexual being, and not being limited by patriarchy and really just going out there and doing things. There were so many women at that time who would reach out to me and be like, this is exactly what I was going through and this is how I felt, and I don't feel comfortable speaking about this and on a public forum. And so my platform, in the same vein of authenticity, traveled, I guess, from straight up hoism to motherhood with a sprinkle of hoism, and I feel like a little sprinkle. I feel like it's so invaluable that these women feel like they have a space, or at least, I don't want to be, the person that everybody come to, because I don't have all the answers. I don't, and I don't want to feel like I need to have all the answers for people. But I feel like it's important for me to continue to say, what the fuck really going on? Because there's so many people who are experiencing it, and the fact that you could go online and see everybody else having this wonderful experience, it makes you feel so alone. it makes you feel so alone and so much like you are failing at being a mother, because
that part,
that's all you're seeing is other people having these wonderful experiences, and you're fucking not. You're not having a good experience. So you feel like you're alone. You feel like you can't talk about it. You feel listen, this is where depression starts, you know.
All you need sometimes is solidarity. You need to see that you are not alone in whatever space it is, and for somebody to, even if it's one person to come out and say like, yo, this shit sucks, you'd be like, yeah, it does. Like, to feel like you could identify your situation in somebody else, especially like with somebody like you who already has a platform. Everybody know that you're going to speak transparently, right? So for you to come out and be like, yo, this is exactly what's happening. Like, I remember when you were talking about FMLA and the fact that like you couldn't get leave past a certain time, and like how crazy that is. Like, you from the beginning, from the time you got pregnant with Roman, were talking about all of the aspects. Not to say that you were being quote unquote negative, but you were being really and truly honest about what pregnancy looks like from about the beginning to having a child. Yeah, about the whole thing. And I think for a lot of people that was like, you know what, this shit is refreshing, because everybody else is like, oh my God, my life has changed. I am a new woman. And I'm like, girl, your pussy just get ripped 2 inches and they had to sew it back together. Like, can we talk about that? No?
And yeah, and I think that's why I'm so annoyed, because like, and I know social media culture has a lot to do with it, but I think even before social media became a thing, I think that's what that's what our elders were doing. You know what I mean? And it's just like, bitch, like, can we be more honest? Like, I don't know. I just feel like a lot of women, especially women, have been deceived into becoming mothers. And the reason why I say it is because the picture has always been painted of it being this magical experience. And is it? Yes, our bodies can do amazing things. However, there's always a dark side to everything. You can't have day without night, right? There's 2 sides to every coin. And in order for that coin to exist, and exactly, it's balance. And in order for motherhood to happen, in order for parenthood to happen, there's going to be some lows. And it's not fair or realistic to just say, yeah, you're going to have some days, but it's wonderful to be a parent. No, like, don't do that.
Stop sandwiching that up.
So you know what I've come to say?
It's a bad part. That's it.
So the thing that I tend to say, which is the truth, I always say, I don't like being a mother. I like being Dylan's mother, which is a fact. I love being Dylan's mother in particular. This is the child that I know. I don't have enough children to say I love being a mother. As the whole scope, when I think about the person that I am, I don't fucking like being a mother, because there's a lot that I have to do for a person that's not me. Doing these things that I don't feel like doing makes it worth it because of the person I'm doing it for. And I was able to develop it in that way because of the years that we've had together. I like him as a person. When he was a baby, it was, you know, it's funny. I find a lot of people gonna think this is weird, but it was easier to take care of him when he was a baby to me, because babies just have basic needs. They need to be fed, they need to be nurtured, they need a safe place to live, right? Obviously, you're gonna bond with them and shit. But the older they get, to me, the more they need, right? You need to guide them to be decent human beings. They have preferences now. They like chicken nuggets one week, they hate it the next week. They like pears this week, they fucking despise it. They have their needs and their preferences change over time. When they're a baby, they're just like, bitch, you got some milk?
For me, is the opposite. Like, taking care of Roman when he didn't have a personality was very on a schedule for me. It was okay, baby needs to take a bath, baby needs to eat, baby needs to be changed, you know. And it was more of he was more of a responsibility than something that I appreciated and I enjoyed. You know what I'm saying? I would tell anybody that is willing to hear, like, I didn't like him when he was first born, because there was nothing to like. You know, it was a responsibility that I had. Where some women have this bond, I didn't have that. I had these are the things that I'm responsible for, because if I don't do them, CPS don't bust that door. So let me do what the hell it is I'm supposed to do. You know what I'm saying? Versus now, where he has a person, his personality is developing. And I have a lot of personality, and so does he, and I am enjoying his faces, dog. Did you see
I
that
love
video?
those
He was
faces.
like,
He was so over
oh
you.
my
He was
God.
sitting there like, really?
He was
You
so
were
over
like,
me.
oh, he's so cute.
Yeah.
He was like, all right.
He
whatever.
has this big personality that is developing. And the more, even though it is more of a physical, it demands more of me physically because I have to keep up with him now that he's walking and moving stuff so that he don't throw them down all over the place. It demands more of me. It does than it did before, but I enjoyed this part way more than I didn't enjoy him being an infant. I didn't. He was cute, but I didn't enjoy it. I enjoyed this.
There is a conversation I really want to have because not too long ago you Rebecca, you experienced a serious loss in your family.
I know that's what coming on, but bad a woman don't cry. So let's go. Let's go.
And we listen, speak to it however you feel comfortable because I never want people to come out here and just like trauma dump if they don't want to, But you experienced a serious loss, and I think the way that you spoke about it, I really identified with because I don't have kids. I have pets, right? And a lot of times people, when I say, oh, well, I don't have children, but I have 2 cats and that's enough for me, people will be like, oh, but it's not the same. Like, they'll be like, don't bring up pets when I talking about children. And I'll be like, yo, if something happened to my pet, it will be a serious loss for me.
I love Gypsy and Nuri dearly. Let's be clear. Those are my big shit.
So here's
fuck
the
with
thing,
them heavy, but I don't see it as the same. Like, I will never see it as the same.
You don't see it as the same because you had Dylan before you had Gypsy and Nuri.
Well, I've had pets before Dylan, and I loved my pets, but I don't see it as the same.
But this is why I'm saying that for me, my pets are that's what I have.
Right.
And
that's all you know. The reality is that's all you know is your pets.
But the thing for me too is that I can't see myself, and I'm going to explain this. With my pets, I love them dearly. I have an affectionate relationship with them. We cuddle, we have all of that. And then them motherfuckers, they go about their business and I don't go about mine. When I feed them and I leave my house, there's no need to take my pets with me. When I plan trips, I plan for somebody to come to the house and feed them. There is a relationship that I have with my pets that is very conducive to the life I want to live. And for that, I love them so much. And I feel like in the way that I love my pets and for the reasons I love my pets, I would resent a child.
Right, and that's why it's not the same as being a parent. That's why having a pet is not the same. So when I'm like,
no, but what I'm telling you is that like I have more love for my pets than I feel I could have for a child. For that reason, right? So when Rebecca made that post, obviously like I was very like sad for you, but at the same time I was like glad that you posted it because I was like finally somebody put words to why I genuinely don't want children, but I would feel this level of like insurmountable loss if I was to lose one of my pets. Right. And you were literally putting words to it, and you in the post was like people talk about the fact that like not resenting children or not regretting having children, but you straight up said in this moment, I don't know if you said resented or regretted, like you were resenting your child.
No, resentment made sense. Yeah.
So, if you want to speak
because
to that.
There was a direct correlation for me between my son and my dually, right? Because I had to pay for all of these other things that I never anticipated paying for. Let's be clear, right? I did not English Bulldog breed, right, is a breed that you can look forward to having to spend a lot of money on this dog, right? And a lot of people, fetishize certain breeds of dogs, and they get them haphazardly, and they don't do their research. They don't know what can be coming with this kind of dog, right? That was not me. I did not get dually because, fly by night decision. I did my research. I knew what health concerns I could be looking forward to in a dog, but I also knew that I would not be having children because these doctors had told me that I would not be having children. So I knew that I would have the resources, or that all of the resources that I have could be dedicated to dually and the health concerns that would be coming later on down the road. right?
Yeah.
That, so I did not, and that was what was most that was what was most hurtful for me. I was no longer able to pay for the things that when I got him, I knew I could. And it was almost like there was a bond between us where he knew, you know, he was gonna get sick, but he could depend on mommy to help him feel better because she have it. She have the resources to make him feel better, you know. But then, you know, daycare is a really big financial, it's a really big financial responsibility. And I made the conscious decision to have Roman, right? This was before Roe versus Wade was overturned, and I had the option to abort if I wanted to, right? But because I had been told this whole time that I couldn't have children and I was finally pregnant, I was like, oh, well, this is, you know, quote unquote, a miracle. I shouldn't just spit in God's face and throw away the child, you know, although my life was perfectly fine before I went and had this child. So I kept the child. I made a conscious decision to keep him, right? And then now I reached to a point where I have to choose one son over another. And this Dooley was the son I chose. You know what I'm saying? Like, I chose Dooley. Like, this was an intentional just decision that I made 100% cognizant of the repercussions, the possible repercussions. This was somebody I chose. Family is, you know, family is somebody, you know, you happen to have because people be born, right? But a pet is somebody that you specifically go out there and you choose to love them. This was the son I chose. And so looking at the son that I chose and realizing that I would not be able to keep him alive because of the son that I decided to have, it was a very painful, obviously, right? It was a very painful decision for me to make, you know?
Yeah.
And it resulted in, and especially him dying on Roman's birthday, I was an emotional clusterfuck.
I can't even imagine.
Because I was supposed to be, listen, it was madness. And I wanted to be happy for my son on his birthday. But I resented him so much that day and the week following. Like, I wanted this son that I chose to be in my life, but I didn't have him anymore. And there was a direct correlation between that and my son and Roman, right? So glad and so appreciative, so grateful for my ex who I live with, but nothing going on, and my sister who were here to love up on Roman when I couldn't.
You couldn't. You literally could not. Yeah.
I could not. I didn't even want to see the little boy, to be honest.
I believe that. That's fair. It's understandable. It's very understandable. It's so, and I'm glad you actually shared that with people, because I feel like people need to recognize that that's a part of life. That right there, that you experienced, that's, and for, like you said, it's a direct correlation. So if anybody really expected you to be able to like be a typical mother to Roman on a day like that, they're fucking mad. I'm sorry. Like, mentally, nobody, like, it's so understandable that you were like, the fuck?
But
like,
I mean, what? There are people, so just to point out there are people who would have had that expectation of Rebecca, right? Because in conversations, like, and it's real, I'm not expecting nobody who listening to this who may not see a pet as the same as a child to just suddenly flip their beliefs and be like, oh yeah, maybe it is the same. Because my husband is one of those people. He does not have the same sort of bond with our pets as I do, right? So he don't see them as like if we lose a pet, he gonna be like, well, shit, the pet pass on and we can move on, like we get another one. Like, he's very logical, straightforward. Like, it's not as much of a part of his life as it is mine, right? So I think, you know, for people who have that mindset in situations like that, some of those people might have expected Rebecca to, like, okay, we get it, but like, pull it together because it's your child's birthday. And she was experiencing loss, like she was grieving. And what the expectation for some people would have been is, you are a mother, so fuck everything else you have going on. You're a mother. You need to go be a mother. And that's the part of motherhood that we don't talk about it enough. And two, I don't identify with that shit because no, I don't want to go be a mother right now.
Like, and you know what?
That's not what I want to do.
I'm saying this now, fuck those people. But for anybody who understands the complexities of just being a person, a human being with emotions, it makes sense for Rebecca to feel resentment considering that loss. And like she said, that direct correlation between her being told that she would never be a mother, choosing to become a parent to this dog, and then becoming a mother. And because of the expenses associated with being this child's mother, now she can no longer afford to keep her dog alive as long as he could have lived, because now her resources are being allocated to this child. Anybody with enough sense should be able to see how it makes sense that she was resentful. And anybody who sees it as, girl, move on, fuck that dog, fuck you.
What I think that the concept is that being a mother is paramount over whatever else you have going on.
Bullshit, because
and that is just
bullshit. It's bullshit.
It's bullshit. And I feel like for women, and I go and use this word again, and I trying to find another word that's not as abrasive and doesn't have such a negative connotation, but I'm at a loss. This is the word to me that embodies it. Women who would think that their grieving was less important than their child's birthday, I think that that's pathetic. I think that you as a person need to figure out where you need to nurture yourself. You need to be cognizant of what you are going through. You need to be able to, because at the end of the day, at the end of that child's birthday, you're still hurting. And sometimes if you don't acknowledge the feelings that you are actually feeling, you're going to fuck up all kind of other relationships because you're angry, you're pissed off, you're lashing out at people, you're doing all kind of stuff that you wouldn't have done if you had stopped and taken the time to address what you're actually feeling. And I think that being able to stop and be a person makes you a better mother.
Exactly.
Because where we were talking about, me want to talk about your mother, right? But you were saying earlier that your mommy was kind of mean. She was always
I talk about she all the time. You know she was very mean, and she's not emotionally intelligent.
We've brought Catherine up on this podcast before.
But the reality is I'm able to acknowledge that my mother could have handled her emotions better and she was mean, but I'm also able to acknowledge that social conditioning has a lot to do with it. Her upbringing has a lot to do with it. Like these women who feel like their role as a mother supersedes everything in their lives. Yes, it is pathetic, but the reality is they were brought up to feel that way. Society has conditioned women to believe that motherhood trumps all, especially if they do choose to become a mother. And until that gets dismantled, more women are going to continue to become mothers and then realize that their partners ain't worth a damn, because that's a very common thing. I wish we had enough time to talk about how many married single mothers exist. These women be fully married and they're raising children by themselves. That's social conditioning. It's not just the woman. And you have to go through enough. You have to be broken down enough to realize I'm better off by myself, or I need to prioritize me so that I can be a better mother. You know what I mean? And so it's gonna come with a lot of darkness in order to see that light. That's just the reality, right? Like those great aspects of motherhood, unless you're comfortable acknowledging and that's why I said earlier, it's the dark side of parenting. It's the part that nobody talks about. It's the part that people just shove in the coat closet, and closets are dark once the door is closed. No, that's why it's the dark side of parenting. But the reality is in order to grow past that and prioritize yourself, we gotta have these conversations, honey. We have to.
Exactly. And listen, this whole episode, I tell I gonna wrap this up, put it on like a jump drive, and just walk around with a fuck, because I think people expect me to have a quote unquote better explanation for why I'm not gung-ho about becoming a mother. But the reality is that I acknowledge that there is a part of me who wants my life to be for myself. And the only part of that I am willing to sacrifice is the parts that I have, I want to share with my partner. I chose to get married. I chose to be in a long-term relationship. But within that relationship, I still have autonomy over myself, over my body, over what I choose to do in my life. And, as much as I would love to be married for the rest of my life, if push comes to shove and we choose that this marriage is not honoring both of us, we could easily leave. If I have a child you know how fucked up it would be for me to just be like, me feeling you no more. Like, just
That
drop my
part.
child. Like, I can't do that. I cannot do
That's
that. That
fucked
is
up.
a personal
It's terrible.
responsibility for the rest of you. People could say until 18. Fuck that. So, you know, there's so much that goes into it and so much personal sacrifice, and it's packaged as this like new higher experience. And don't get me wrong, I don't disagree that there are parts of motherhood that can be beautiful, but for the most part, when it comes to women and the physical and mental sacrifice that we have to make in order to bring a child into this world, I'm sorry,
And that's the thing, it's not going to be worth it to some. And I want people, for one, I want to let y'all know, it's very possible for people to get married and not want children. Marriage and children are not one and the same.
You know
it's
how much
possible
fun this house be with no children in it?
I bet. So that's the one thing, like,
God.
I resent that you and Stephen are constantly being bombarded with questions about children. And that's why it goes back to that whole social conditioning, because people
More
just
so
expect
Stephen
it to
than
be
me.
the next step. They asked Stephen more, but that's what's crazy.
They will ask him in
That's
front
very
of
interesting.
me. They will ask him on the phone when they know I in the room, but they won't ask me
because they know they know not to
him
ask you
when
anymore.
we have children. Not even that. I think that there's a part of them who sometimes, not all of them, because I think sometimes people just genuinely ask it from a place of curiosity. But there are some people who believe that that decision is up to him as my husband and not up to us or up to me.
The person whose fucking body is turning this liquid into a person. The person whose body
and
is
I see it as a very us decision. Like, I see it as a, hey,
as you should.
So we don't fuck with kids, right? And he'll be like, yeah, nah, okay, cool.
Hey.
Like, it's very easy for us because we're on the same page. But I think most people see it as like, oh, when your wife like talk to she when I having a baby, and I'll be like, dude,
I hope
asked this. What do you mean?
Stephen says, hey, Isa is the person whose body is going to turn the liquid into a human. So don't fucking ask me no dumb shit. Ask her, because she gets to decide if we're having children. The fuck?
I think for the most part, we've decided that like we're not even entertaining the conversation. So when people ask me to just say we're not there, like we're not, and we don't just move on, like we don't change the subject. Like we're not going to sit here and talk to you about why Steven hasn't nut in me yet. So let's not. Like, it's Thanksgiving. We're eating. This is weird.
I like that you said that. And I hope that one day y'all get to a point where y'all start talking to people like that. Because that's literally what they're asking you. Why haven't you
really want to be like,
why are you still pulling out? Why are you still using condoms? Why is she still on birth control? Stay out of my... What?
I don't be sitting there like, do you realize what you asking this man?
What you're asking me? Right.
You asking this man like, yo, you shooting up the club? Like, why not?
Why you ain't shooting up the club though?
Why you ain't shooting up the club? The club is closed. Weirdos. We want to go in here and dance to Beyonce. We do not want to have children in this club.
Hello.
When you think about the conversation like that, it's cringeworthy, right? That's what it is. It's very cringy. And I feel like you need to put people in that space when they ask you shit like, when you gonna have a baby? Because I have been married for so long and I need to go ahead and have a baby. When is he going to nut in me? You're saying that's what, like, if you make it,
you
like,
need to make people just as uncomfortable because they're so comfortable asking people such personal questions. So you give them very personal answers. Well, as much as I would like him to nut in me, I would rather not have children. So,
or I don't want to be like, I don't know. So when you had started nutting in your wife, like, how often was it? Like, were y'all just shooting up the club every night? Like, how did you do it? And then they're gonna look at me and gonna be like,
Absolutely.
well, you asking about babies? That's how babies happen.
That's how babies are formed,
right? So,
anyway.
I really do think that you should make them as uncomfortable as they are.
Agreed.
They are so comfortable making you uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Like,
Agreed.
Another part of it is that, so I've seen people online, and I've been one of those people who say like, hey, you shouldn't ask people when they're having kids because you just don't know, like, if someone's struggling to get pregnant, if someone has experienced miscarriage, stillbirth, all of that, right? And I get that. But a part of it for me too is like, we don't even have to go that far. It shouldn't matter whether I have had a miscarriage or whether I have been trying and having a difficult time. What matters is that I don't want to talk about this fuck. Like, I genuinely don't want to talk about whether or not I'm having kids with you, Caroline. Like, we're why?
You know, like, what I noticed? I feel like a lot of times people just don't care about the person for them, right? And you notice when you're getting to know somebody, they never just act like, I feel like people and their existence is defined by things outside of them, what they do for a living, where they live, if they have kids, why they're not having kids, why their husband, like it's just kind of weird to me. Like, how come you ain't asking about this person's hobbies? Like, what brings this person joy, as opposed to when they having kids, why their husband ain't shooting up the club, what they do for, like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just.
I think that the moral to this story in general is that people do not see women as individual, autonomous people, right?
That's it. That's
from
the
beginning
episode.
to end. From
That's
why are
it.
you not having children to why when you experiencing grief are you not focused on your child? Why is your child not the center of your universe? It's never about the woman who is bringing.
Why doesn't your child have your husband or the baby father last name?
And and you know what? I'm gonna just say this. For one, if anybody was questioning you not being in a position to like properly celebrate Roman, first of all, we all know Roman ain't gonna remember anyway. Secondly, you are going to raise a son who is going to fully understand that and probably find himself wanting to hug you. I feel like you are going to raise a son who is going to have enough emotional intelligence, right?
Absolutely.
To fully understand. To fully understand everything you were going through and say, oh my gosh, mom, like, wow, I couldn't imagine experiencing that. You're going to have a son who's not going to be offended that you couldn't be present for his birthday, but he's going to probably just give you a fucking hug and say, my God, these are the kinds of sacrifices you made to raise me. Like, fuck them people.
Right.
Wow.
Really, truly, honestly.
Right.
I'm grateful to you for joining us and for always being transparent, and not even just here on the podcast, like using your page as a platform for these type of conversations. Like, you are creating so much space for women who are mothers, for women who might become mothers, for people like me who are like, fuck them kids for life. Like, we appreciate you. So thank you so much for joining us.
FDK, fuck them kids. We gotta go.
Good up, audience. Please know that there will be a part 2 to this episode because we have so much more to talk about. But thank you guys for listening. You know where you can find us on social media at Good Up Pod on all platforms. You know we had a Twitter thread this week on this episode topic, so go complete the Twitter thread. Share the episode on Facebook, do all the promo you can. Shout out to the Good Up VIP section over on Patreon. If you want access. Thank you guys for supporting this this platform and keeping the motherfucking lights on. And if you want all the access to episodes, access to extra content, or our Good Up Facebook group, then make sure to go over to patreon.com/gooduppodcast and support us. With that being said, we will see you right back here next Tuesday, bitch, on the Good Up podcast. You try to tell the people and bye. Good Up is hosted and produced by Deidre Ritter and Hey Isaac Quinones Ivory. Find us on all social media platforms at Good Up Pod. Use hashtag Good Up Tuesday to continue the conversation and get access to exclusive bonus content at patreon.com/gooduppodcast.